If I asked you to picture an angel, what would you see? A human face, white robes, large feathered wings, perhaps a glowing halo. For most of us, that image appears almost instantly. But here's another question. What if almost everything we've been taught to imagine comes from paintings rather than the earliest descriptions? Because when you go back to the oldest texts, something surprising begins to emerge. The beings described there don't always look human at all. Some are described as living fire, others as enormous wheels covered in countless eyes. Some possess multiple faces, others are so overwhelming that the first thing they say is remarkably consistent. Do not be afraid. And that raises an interesting question. If these beings simply looked like beautiful people with wings, why would we be fearful? Why would fear be our first response? Perhaps we've misunderstood what angels really are. Welcome back. I'm Laura. Today we're exploring one of the most fascinating questions in history. What if angels were never human? Not human beings who grew wings, not people who became divine, but an entirely different form of intelligence that ancient cultures struggled to describe. Where did our image of angels come from? It's easy to assume our image of angels comes directly from scripture, but surprisingly much of it doesn't. The image most of us carry today was shaped over centuries by artists during the Renaissance and medieval periods. They painted angels with familiar human faces, flowing robes, soft expressions, large white feathered wings. Not necessarily because that's exactly what ancient texts described, but because artists were translating spiritual ideas into images that people could emotionally connect with. And that makes sense. Human beings naturally understand the unfamiliar by comparing it with something familiar. Psychologists sometimes call this cognitive familiarity. When we're confronted with something completely unknown, our brains instinctively search for something we've already experienced. It's one of the ways the mind reduces uncertainty. Perhaps those artists weren't documenting what angels literally look like. Perhaps they were interpreting experiences that were difficult to put into words. Over hundreds of years, these interpretations became accepted as reality. But what happens if we go much further back to the earliest descriptions themselves? That's where things become far more interesting. One of the biggest surprises is that ancient texts don't describe just one kind of angel. They describe many different kinds of beings. Some appear almost human. Others don't resemble anything we have ever encountered before. The higher up you go within the traditional hierarchy, the stranger the descriptions become. Some are described as burning with living fire. Others appear surrounded by eyes. Others are described using language that almost sounds mechanical or multi-dimensional. Now, does that prove anything? No. But ancient writers were trying to describe extraordinary experiences using the vocabulary available to them thousands of years ago. If you'd never seen electricity, how would you describe it? If you've never seen an aircraft, how would you explain it? Language always struggles when people encounter something outside of their everyday experience. Which raises another fascinating possibility. Were ancient people describing symbolic visions? Or were they trying to describe something they'd genuinely witnessed but couldn't fully explain? What if angel isn't a species? Here's something that's often overlooked. The word angel isn't actually a biological description, it's a job title. The English word comes from the Greek word angelos, meaning messenger. So think about that for a moment. Imagine describing every person on earth simply as teacher, doctor, scientist, engineer. Those words tell you what someone does, not what they are. Perhaps angel works in exactly the same way. Perhaps messenger simply describes one particular role among many different forms of intelligence. If that's true, then asking, what does an angel look like, is a little like asking, what does a scientist look like? There isn't one answer, because the role can be carried out by many different individuals. Could ancient texts have been describing an entire ecosystem of intelligent beings rather than one single species? It's an intriguing possibility. Why do angels so often say, "Do not be afraid"? One detail appears repeatedly throughout ancient scripture. Before delivering any message, the being often says, "Do not be afraid." It's one of the most repeated phrases associated with angelic encounters. But why? If they simply look like ordinary people, would reassurance really be necessary? Perhaps fear wasn't caused by aggression. Perhaps it was caused by encountering something completely outside of ordinary human experience. Imagine meeting an intelligence that doesn't fit any category your brain has ever encountered. How would you react? Neuroscience tells us that the brain constantly predicts reality. It builds models based on memory, experience, culture, expectation. When something appears that doesn't fit these models, the brain experiences uncertainty, sometimes even fear. Perhaps those ancient encounters weren't frightening because the beings were hostile. Perhaps they were frightening because they were profoundly unfamiliar. Could angels appear differently to different people? This is another fascinating idea, one that has existed in theological discussions for centuries. The idea that angels appear in forms the observer can tolerate, not deceptive, compassionate. If a being's true nature exists beyond ordinary human perception, wouldn't it make sense to communicate using forms that feel familiar? Imagine someone living 2,000 years ago. They might describe a radiant messenger. Someone today might describe a being of light. Another person might describe an interdimensional intelligence. Someone else might call it a spirit guide. Are these completely different experiences? Or could they be different interpretations of something fundamentally similar? Again, there isn't proof, but it's a question worth asking, especially when remarkably similar encounters have been reported across completely different cultures throughout history. Consciousness and perception. Modern neuroscience offers another interesting perspective. Increasingly, researchers recognize that the brain doesn't simply record reality, it interprets it. It filters information. It constructs a model of the world that allows us to function. If consciousness encountered something genuinely unfamiliar, could the brain translate that experience into symbols it already understands? Perhaps that's why descriptions vary, while the themes remain remarkably consistent. Light, presence, wisdom, overwhelming intelligence, messages, transformation, different words, different cultures, yet strangely similar experiences. Why this conversation matters today? For much of modern history, these ideas remained largely within religion, but something has changed. Discussions surrounding consciousness, non-human intelligence, and unidentified anomalous phenomena have increasingly entered mainstream scientific and governmental conversations. Researchers are asking questions that would once have been dismissed. How much of reality lies beyond ordinary perception? How does consciousness shape experience? Could intelligence exists in forms we don't yet understand? Against that backdrop, ancient descriptions begin to feel surprisingly relevant again. Not because they suddenly became proven, but because they invite us to reconsider assumptions we may never have questioned. Perhaps our ancestors weren't less intelligent than we are. Perhaps they simply used different language to describe extraordinary experiences. So, what if angels were never human? What if they weren't winged people watching over us from the clouds, but different forms of intelligence, each carrying out different purposes within a reality far more complex than we've traditionally imagined? Perhaps the biggest misconception isn't that angels exist. Perhaps it's assuming that they look like us, because the oldest descriptions suggest something far stranger and perhaps far more fascinating. In our next video, we're going to explore those descriptions in much more detail, because according to ancient tradition, there weren't just angels. There were 9 orders of angels, each with different roles, different purposes, and remarkably very different appearances. If you've enjoyed exploring these ideas with me, don't forget to subscribe.